in a like Google Drive. So, but the link is in the chat, so you can just go in there and download it. And if you want to share, you can go ahead and share.
And I think, yeah, that was the problem. I was having an issue sharing. So let me see here.
You gotta probably download it on your machine first, or you have to share your entire browser. That way, because it's in the Google Drive, the browser will be rendering the slideshow. So you have to share the browser. So it's up to you how you want to do it.
Try this again. Okay, 1 second. Just trying to come up now. Okay. I think it's trying to make me do full screen, which is not good because I can't really interact. So I'll really need you to help me if there's questions, because I won't be able to see the screen. I don't think so.
Okay.
Mhm.
Um,
Which is fine. Let me see here.
I can try and download the slides and monitor them for you, if that's okay.
Wait, let me see here. So I'm seeing here, share. Hmm, this one.
and you probably don't need, we can see your slide right now. You probably don't need to do slideshow. You can just go from one slide to the other,
Can you
something visual for the attendees.
can you just see the slide right now? Just
Yes,
the slide?
we are we are not seeing the slideshow. We are seeing the slide decks, but the agenda slide is what you have
Hmm.
here right now.
Okay. So you saw that I just advanced the slide, but you're seeing all of the slide. Is that correct? You're not.
Yes, yes. No, and we didn't see you advanced it. We
Huh.
didn't see.
Ah, this is no bueno. Okay.
So when you click on share screen, it probably tells you whether you want to share your entire screen or the PowerPoint or the browser. Now we can see, yes. Well, it went back to non-slideshow mode.
Interesting. Okay. I'm not sure what you're seeing. Do you see the agenda slide?
Yes, we see.
Do you see me advancing?
Exactly. Yep, we see that now.
Excellent. And you can only see one slide at a time. You're not seeing everything. Is that correct?
That's fine. We are seeing on the sidebar all the other
Ah,
slides, but that's okay. As long as the slide that you are pointing to, that comes up on top, that's fine. And that's what I see right now.
all right, perfect. All right. Sorry about that.
No
Uh,
problem.
technical difficulties here. Okay, so the agenda slide, like I said, we're going to try to break these out. And I really just want you all to feel comfortable in just working in this workshop. And hopefully, the level of comfort that you get in this workshop, you will take that level of comfort into any interview with you all, right? I saw that there were some questions that I really want to make sure we address around having fear before interview and just some other items that are very legit questions, very legit, feelings to have, especially as it says here, you're re-entering STEM through an emerging technology, and there's always a lot of buzz around that. But at the end of the day, I want to try to come out of here with a framework. No matter if it's for machine learning, DevOps, security, it doesn't matter what that re-emerging kind of STEM technology is that you're focused on as your area of study, and you're trying to command that technically with your classes right now, and any type of training that you receive. There are some things that are just basic, and everyone will be looking at for you to command a certain amount of that. And that's really kind of gathering those customer details and those customer features, and most importantly, the acceptance criteria. If you build this, how will you know that a customer will accept it? You have to ask them, what is acceptable to you? Do you need your data, for example, in near real time? Or is this something that every 24 hours can be refreshed? Or you only need your data once a week? So you make sure that you align the appropriate services to deliver that type of a service to that customer. So even saying some basic things like that in an interview is going to make me, myself and a lot of my colleagues say, wow, this person really, knows and commands and understands how to work in industry even prior to having industry experience. So you can utilize that agile process in your classes, right? With your classwork, with your class projects. Use those as examples in an interview if you have not been able to do that on a job. That's going to make the interviewer know that you truly have an understanding of how you can be successful in any type of industry setting, right? So, this is just a little background about the company. I know I spoke about that earlier for those of you that joined a little bit late. We are advanced consulting partners with Amazon Web Services, and our main focus is on data. So, a lot of times you'll see our customers will ask us, hey, they have silos of data that they're trying to bring into one single source of truth that we call a data lake. Some of you may be familiar with database. You may be familiar with data warehousing. Data warehousing is for customers that have more standardized data, but when you have data outside of that standardized format, you need more of a data lake. That's where you're looking at video as data, or you're looking at photos as data, or you're looking at PDFs. A lot of people have tons of paper and PDFs out there. How do you then bring that data in and enrich it, across the other lines of data that they have at the company, and then automate those paper flows so that people are not manually finagling all that data from ingest to all the way to insight, and saving them tons of time. So that's our main focus at Bellflower Technologies. So the first thing I kind of want to talk about, and I know this is not a very colorful slide because I want it to be a little bit more of a dialogue. This is how we look at it in this industry. I know you would probably think, oh, putting hands straight to keyboard and getting to the platform. It's really, though, looking at about the people, the process, and then the platform. And if you're able to look at it from that lens, if you are a customer and you're going for, someone to help you to build, you would want them to ask you questions. And you got to really put the hat of the customer on. How would you really want to be treated as a customer? What level of customer service. So really, when you say yes, I'm reemerging, looking at STEM, a lot of that reemerging is looking at the customer first. So you may hear a lot of big companies, AWS has this as one of their principles, customer obsession. What does that mean? Working backwards from the customer, not working backwards from the keyboard or the technology. You really want to then have a process in place to actually then gather their requirements, and then you want to look at, once you have those requirements, what platform, what technical services would be around a hackathon, around a team, maybe in a particular group project. You really want to try to not only use something at school where you were doing it for a grade, but also then look beyond something that you didn't have to get a grade for. And I think that that's really helpful in them showing you just really differentiating yourself from all your other classmates that kind of had a similar project that maybe going for the same interview. It also shows that outside of you getting a grade, you will go and raise the bar and do beyond and above and beyond what's asked of you. And a lot of times when you are building for customers, you will have to go above and beyond the call of duty. And so they'll be looking to see who actually has that grit to be able to do that, who has the passion to want to be able to do that. That is very, very important as well. Have a, a sample story, a time that you faced a crisis at work. It could be at school. It could definitely be during a hackathon where maybe you only had 24 hours to deliver a particular solution. How did you handle it? Really be prepared to tell those type of stories. This is again is showcasing who you are as a person. They've already read your resume. They know your background. They know all of the things written, but now they want you to come to life as a person in front of them. Can you articulate with ease that story where it's not rehearsed, it's not high level, but it really means something to you? It really invokes like like emotion from you. And people want to see that you care, that you have some passion about it, because you will have to be very passionate, very attentive to details. And a lot of times you will have to step up. They're going to be looking for you in this space where you all are looking at STEM and the future of work. And we're talking about maybe machine learning and looking at some of these other things. And even from a security standpoint, you're going to have to secure some of these newer workloads that are coming out. There are new threats that come out all the time. How do you stay ahead of those? You're going to have to research. When you research, that means you go beyond what's been taught right in front of you at school and what you've been tasked with at work, because they know that they can rely on you to research and to try to come up with alternative plans to keep the company forward thinking and forward facing. When you're talking about technology, you always want to try to say, how can you do this better, faster? You're attending, workshops like these, you're attending certain conferences. How can you bring home some of those new releases and new information and try to come up with ways that will keep the company on the cutting edge? Sometimes your managers are looking for you to teach them something. Maybe bring up an example like that. That would really set you apart and really make you look like a fantastic candidate. Because a lot of the time, when you before you put hands to keyboard, or even while you're putting hands to keyboard, you may have to pause because you ran into a bug, or you ran into some limitation, and now it's going to require you to go outside the box and really think, how can you customize a solution at this point to optimize? And they'll be looking for those. So make sure you have some examples of those. And like I said, it doesn't necessarily have to be 100% technical, but they want to see that you know how to go outside of yourself to do some of those items, even beyond what your teacher's telling you in a syllabus. You don't need a 100% syllabus to be successful. You're a person that actually could help them to build a syllabus, or even come in and revise the one that they currently have, if that makes any sense. Okay? Maybe a sample of the last thing you learned. And again, it doesn't have to be technical. What we're looking for here are people who, again, they like to learn new things. Because in technology, everything is new. It seems like every week. And I always hear from our customers, I hear, even from our team, it is difficult to keep up with some of those new releases from some of these companies that are putting out, maybe the building blocks of technology for you all to then build actual solutions for customers. And so I know AWS, they iterate like every week, every single week. They have new iterations to some of their services, and even brand new services that are birthed out of customer asks. So, how do you stay on top of that? And so, just saying, what's the last thing that you learned? Are you a curious person? That's going to be super important as well across the board. No matter what portion of STEM that you fall into, that's going to be important. Technical skills. Candidates should have deep knowledge in at least one of the 64 areas. So what I would say here, not getting so deep into the different core areas, but what is it that you do best? And usually what you do best is something that you're passionate about. I would say I've heard someone say, make your strengths stronger. And sometimes people, spend time making their weaknesses and trying to strengthen those. Make your strength stronger. What's going to happen is that you'll be so strong in one area that you'll be like a go-to person for that. You're really going to excel, shine above the rest. And in order to be strong, you're probably curious. You're probably going outside yourself. You're probably doing some of those items that are going to take care of some of these questions above and giving samples of, that will lead you right into having that one knowledge, that one deep area of knowledge technically that company is going to be excited about having on their team. Maybe you can go very deep in DevOps. DevOps is huge. Almost every company and every customer needs DevOps. Why? Because as you're deploying these solutions, they want to make sure that they can deploy it in the most automated fashion and not burden their teams with more manual work. You want to really showcase that you can take that operational burden off of your team by being able to put into place tools and processes that can help. So even, showcasing that's huge. If you know DevOps, probably more than likely that's going to be relevant 100% of your technical interviews. Security, all of those things are important, but tell them that you know how to do DevOps and that you know how to manually, take manual functions and automate them. That's huge. Um, so those would be some things I would say. Um, again, you're looking for students that go beyond their coursework, that don't have to be spoon fed, that you don't have to tell each task, of what to do when you hire them, because they really want you to be a fire starter as well. Even at the entry level, they want you to come in with some new skill sets to kind of breathe new, fresh life into the team and into the organization. And they'll be willing to invest in you, but they want to see that you invest in you first. And that's what you can showcase. How do you invest in yourself to make yourself stand out and to be a gem that they say we definitely have to hire you. No doubt you are on the short list. Okay? And you all will get a copy of this after this, so you don't have to, focus so much on that. Are there any questions so far on this? I don't see any in the side chat specifically. Um, yes, Sarah, that's something that's a really big deal. If not being spoon fed, if you can actually come to the table with something that is just amazing, and not look for, okay, I did this one thing, what's the next 10 things? You should already be researching and knowing what those additional things are. Even tried it. If you have run into a roadblock, say, hey, I have a roadblock, I've done this and this, and be very specific with the questions that you have, and I think your team will be more than happy to help you. But the fastest way to kill a team is to kind of not really showcase that you're stepping outside of yourself, stepping outside your comfort zone into an unknown, and trying something and not coming with very specific questions around a specific blocker. You will kill the morale on that team, and probably some of your champions and cheerleaders that would have been there for you will maybe start to question you being on the team. So really going outside of that is super important. Um, let's see here, deep dive. So, learning here, I mean, this is from Amazon, right? Amazon has 14 principles that I think really cover a lot of companies and what they're trying to do. They're a leader in the space, and now you see a lot of companies are trying to take on a lot of even their principles and seeing that they've been very successful with customers and driving innovation. And so a lot of technology, a lot of STEM is driving innovation. So that's why I pulled their leadership principles in here. I didn't list them all. You all can look them up. I think there's a wonderful YouTube video, and I may put the link in here before I send it, that Jeff Bezos was interviewed quite some time ago, and he talks through each and every one of those principles and how he came up with them and what they actually mean. And he just said it in plain language. And I think you'll find that you agree with probably most, if not all, 14, because they're just the way you would want to be treated as a customer anywhere and be serviced accordingly. And so making sure that you have that, making sure that whatever company, whatever their leadership principles are, first and foremost, know them before you go into the interview, because you'll be able to speak from that point. Or if there's a leadership principle that you want to question them on, people always ask, what questions should I ask? And I think that was actually one of the questions when I looked before the presentation. I would highly suggest that you ask them about their leadership principles and be very specific and say, hey, I saw in this blog or I saw in this interview, try to see if the CEO has been quoted around some of those principles and say, so what is, maybe you question them, about that actual principle in practice internally that maybe, you wouldn't know external to AWS. You want to see if that's a culture where you fit too. So during the interview process, I would definitely say it's not a one-way street, it's definitely a two-way street. You want to make sure that, is this a place you want to call home, because you're going to spend a lot of time, even in a part-time setting with STEM, you're going to spend quite a lot of time there. Is this a place that you actually want to spend that much time and invest? They're looking at, well, we invest in this person as the interviewee, but as the interviewee, you need to make sure that you're asking the interviewer some questions about working there and what's their favorite thing about working there. Maybe what's their least favorite, and see if they'll be honest with you. And ask them maybe even around the principles. I know that I've asked some Amazonians, what's your least favorite principle? And there's one that's called, one of the 14 is frugality. They don't like it. So, not that it's difficult, but it really puts the squeeze on them when it comes to them being able to do certain things and being reimbursed for certain things. Um, so, you know, ask, it's a give and take. And I think a lot of that, there was a question around fear. How do you deal with fear? Being prepared is one of them, but also just showing up as a person and being ready to have a conversation. Don't feel like you're going on trial and you're ready to face charges. I mean, you really want to go and feel like, I want to make sure that they're a fit for me as well. You have a lot of value in the room, and you have to, I think, by overcoming fear, understand your worth and understand your value of what you mean to a company before you even go there. And I think you'll go there with a different posture. And I'm not saying not to be humble. I want you to be exactly that, humble. Because humility is not adding to or taking away from who you already are. And so when you know who you are and you command that, you don't take away from yourself, so there shouldn't be fear, and you definitely don't add to. You definitely want to be straight, upfront, honest, and transparent. And I think that that will help you to be super successful. Okay? Any questions? I'm trying to kind of answer the questions that I saw before here as well. So for some of you that answered those questions, hopefully I'm answering those along the way as well. Okay. Critical thinking skills. This is super huge. This actually ties into the workshop that we'll kind of do today. If a customer is giving you a scenario, can you kind of think on your feet because they're going to be asking you questions? And if you don't know the answer to it, it doesn't mean you have critical thinking doesn't mean you know you have necessarily the answer for everything, but you know how to get it, right? You can even research. I've seen some of our technical teams as a customer is giving their input or asking questions, they're already kind of looking up things online to kind of share with them in the slide share and say, hey, I think that this may work for you. This may be a potential, but I'll have to research a little bit more to see if it actually meets your use case or not. And I think people respect that. They respect that you're going to take the time to research to even give them the right answer versus just trying to give them an answer because you feel that that's what's needed or what's required. Okay. Problem solving and presentation skills, those are huge. As you see here, we're presenting even in having this workshop, and especially in this virtual world, everything seems to be a presentation. Even intro calls now, everything is a presentation. So being comfortable with tools, being comfortable with yourself, being comfortable with communicating verbally, as well as written, because you see here whiteboarding. A lot of times I will whiteboard with customers because sometimes we need to visualize what it is they're saying, and we need them to kind of put some stickies on the board and work with us as we move those stickies around to actually map out their process. Because if I can map out the process, then I can start to ask what are those different tasks and things that the customer does manually, so then I can help our team when I gather those requirements. Okay, then off of those features, what would you look for as a customer if we were to automate this? What would be the definition of done for you, and what would make you extremely happy for us to be your partner in this, because we built it to these features to a certain level of acceptance criteria. So being comfortable with that, maybe even showcasing that in an interview. And maybe you don't have to use the whiteboard, but maybe all of these features, some of these platforms have them. I know Google has it. um, I'm not sure if Zoom does, but some of those top platforms that people are using to screen share now use the whiteboard feature. Start to look at it. And there's some free whiteboards out there that are a little bit more sophisticated that you can use and do a screen share on. And that way you can really showcase, okay, you really know how to not only have good verbal communication skills, written communication skills, but you're also then knowing how to collaborate with that customer. And they feel like you're already a part of the team, you understand them. And when somebody can understand you, now you communicate it because it's a two-way street. Okay? Let's see here. So I put a couple of options here for a technical interview. Um, Making sure, so after you've gone through the people, the process, these kind of dive a little bit more into the technical depth of your actual knowledge of hands to keyboard. So this would be like I would consider once you get to this part of the interview where you see the different types of interview broken out, that's like the second part. That's you being the double threat. Everything above that, really, you didn't put hands to keyboard on. You really didn't. If you look at the criteria. Now, this is the second half where you become the double threat of, okay, what do you actually command technically if you were to put your hands to keyboard? I'm not sure. I think it paused my share. Hmm. Sorry about that. It's saying that I paused my screen sharing, so I'm not sure what you all are seeing at this point. Interesting. I may have to stop and reshare. Are you all able to still see the Word document? Okay. I'm not sure why it says it's paused, but okay. All right, so looking at the technical interview here, prior to the interview, making sure that you actually can talk through your technical knowledge at depth, looking at how you have just taking it to the next level. And so I actually put some notes from the interviewer standpoint so you can see what it is that they'll be looking for. So not just from an interviewee, but from an interviewer, how do we actually train our interviewers to say, hey, when you sit down with a person of this, skill set and knowledge, these are the things that you should be looking for. Okay. And so again, looking at probing, the true depth of knowledge, they're going to ask you questions. If it's around DevOps or security, they'll be asking you questions. Try to make yourself ready for those type of questions in a specific area. And if you don't know it, be transparent about that as well. But maybe say, hey, I don't really know that, but this is how I would research that in order to overcome that technical challenge. And being able to then incorporate it into and maybe tie it back to something you do know. That's going to showcase a lot for you as well there. Okay. Again, they want to make sure that these projects that you're talking about, or you all want to make sure, they're going to be looking at, did you go outside of a grade at school in order to do this? Okay. How do you raise the bar? Will you be able to raise the bar for us when you come, even at entry level? They'll be looking for that to invest in you in the long run, in the long haul. So, with that in mind, I want to bring up a good point. When you go and interview for, especially a STEM position, probably you need to ask yourself what's your long-term goals as well too, because we'll be looking for that as well. I know that I've interviewed a lot of uh, interns and people in entry level, and sometimes people are just looking for a job. And I think when you come with that mindset, although that's awesome, the field of tech is not necessarily going for just a job. You really have to be more career minded and looking down the road and having a focus beyond that particular job. You're looking at that job as a stepping stone to maybe the next 2 to 5 years, and be ready to know what those goals are for yourself. That is very attractive to an interviewer, to note that you're not just in it to just work this job and be in this job, and you're looking for job security for the next 10 years in that one position. They want to see that you're a go-getter, right? So that's important. And then problem two, so the interviewer and some of the things they may be looking at, and they may get very specific. Like here, I have an example about, maybe a web application and some development. They may start to really say, okay, what about compression? You may have to get into what that looks like. You may have to share with them some code you've written. Um, and again, if it's something you feel that you haven't quite yet commanded, or you feel like you would add on to some of the question there, you can then showcase how you would research to do something beyond what they've asked you, right? All of that is points on the board for myself and for my colleagues when we're interviewing. Okay. Are there any questions so far on the interviews process? Okay. Doesn't look like it. Okay, cool. Um, so in looking at this, communication skills, earning trust, being curious, ask them questions as well. I would really stress that. I think sometimes we have interviews, and there a lot of times at the entry level they'll say no, no more questions, or they you can tell they're just very nervous. And I'm really intrigued by, and it doesn't have to be technical. I mean, like I said, ask all types of questions to make sure that that's a place you want to spend a lot of your time. Okay. We're going to go over a little bit of Scale Agile Framework and teams, and a little bit about behavior driven development. And what does that mean? That means, basically when you get those features from a customer or from a product owner, how do you then drive behavior of the customer as well as the product owner? You all should be working together to actually drive behavior that's going to give features that have enough detail in the acceptance criteria that you actually can test that. You could actually build it because you understand it, and then you easily could see how you could write up a test to test back that it actually met the customer's acceptance criteria. Okay, let's see here. And then I'm not sure how the breakout rooms will go. I'll be relying on my friends, Kayla and Isabel, um, so that we
Yeah,
can
I
listen.
can set them up for you. How many people would you like to have in each group?
If we can split them probably into fives, I'm trying to see probably a group of maybe five. And if there's
Okay,
a group that has four, I mean that's fine too.
that's okay. I'll set them up.
Yeah, that would be great if you can start to do that.
1 second.
Mhm. Okay, awesome. Okay. Oh, okay. And Kayla, I think before I go, and Isabel, and before we go into these breakout rooms, will you be able to? Will I be able to float in and out of the rooms to check on the groups?
I can try and get that set up too.
Yeah, that
I
would be
think,
great.
yeah, I think as a co-host you should be able to.
I should be able to float in and out of the rooms. Okay.
Yeah, I think in the bottom of your screen it should say like breakout rooms. I think you can just jump in between them.
Hmm. Okay. I will have to see that in action.
Yeah, wherever it says the number, so it says five, like room one, you can press join. Like if you hover over the five, it gives you the option to join that breakout room.
Let's see. Yeah, right now I'm only seeing breakout room number two. It's like it's making me go to a specific room. And then I'm assuming I'll be able to come back to the main room, but I just wanted to know if I could go to the other rooms as well. Hmm. Okay, we'll work on it. Okay, so
Yeah, if not, I can also assign you to any group just manually, wherever you want to float to.
awesome. Okay, I'm gonna stop the screen share here. And one of the things that I want to do is I want to give you guys a customer scenario that you can kind of work, and I want to try to give you tips in the breakout room that you can utilize in order to ask the right questions. So you can start to take notes around what those questions should kind of look like. And those are things that again you can put into your we can make this a working document, the Word document that I'm giving you. What are some of those questions that you would ask that actual customer, or if you're interacting with a product team at your company that spoke to the customer, got the requirements and got the features from the customer? Did they ask and get enough clarity for you all to then technically know what to do? And if not, what are some of those questions you should kind of ask? And we can kind of, make this even a part of your experience before you go for an interview. You can use this one. I actually pulled this from an actual customer ask, a culmination of. So, anyhow, so So we have a customer that has a very manual process around PDF documents for research papers that are specific to their area of research. They would like to receive funding to actually unify these type of research papers across their country. They want to be the one to bring that solution to not only their university but beyond. They want to be able to extract certain entities from certain sections of these papers. They have maybe 100,000 papers a month that they want this system to be able to do that with. And to be able to then, when they extract, to be able to visualize this in a dashboard and look at those particular entities, not just in summary, but be able to drill down into details. Okay. They want the dashboard to be utilized for funders to give them an understanding clearly of the success that's been had in certain research areas. They also want researchers to note that maybe there's work outside of this country that has been done, or they want to showcase outside of this country the work that has been done so that researchers can use their time more wisely. So a researcher, maybe let's say in Egypt, is not doing the same work as somebody in France, but that they can actually collaborate a lot better because they have more visibility into what each other's researchers actually have. Okay. Um, Some other features. So that's the main features. They want to go from right now, it's manually taking months to gather all the pertinent information that they need just to put it into an Excel spreadsheet. And they don't even have time to do the dashboard that actually gives insights to the end business users that would actually sponsor the work. They want to cut that down to a week. Okay. So with that being said, regardless if you know what type of technology or what that you want to use, do you have enough information? I guess is the question. What other information additionally would you actually need in order for that to happen? Okay. And so let's break out. I want to kind of see what you guys, how, if you were given in an interview, if one of my friends, when I asked her as a CTO, she says one thing she does is she gives them her business card. And these are technical personas, these are data engineers. And she says, how would you build this? How would you build this for me? Her card. And I think, a lot of times people, they're kind of bewildered because they're like, I'm here for a data engineering job. And she's asking me, how would I engineer her business card? She's not looking necessarily that you know the technology at that point, but she's actually looking that you understand that you need to ask some questions. So I'll see if you guys can brainstorm what type of questions would you be asking. And some of you that already know Agile process, if you're on a team, you can help guide your teams. And I'll also go through and give you more information in the breakout rooms. Okay. So I'm going to join, it looks like breakout room number 2, and then I'll navigate to the other rooms. process about 100,000 documents in a month, which he said was virtually impossible manually the way he was doing it to try to get it into an Excel spreadsheet. Okay. Off of that, once you gather all the users, now how will each user accept it? That's what your acceptance criteria is. So all of these you can use in an interview and say, even if you don't know what the acceptance criteria is, you would ask that customer. So that way you would know, how would what you built be acceptable to that user moving forward? How would that be your definition of done? What's your checklist? This is your checklist, straight from the customer's mouth. And there is a lot of formats out there. One that's most popular I used here is called the given when then um, method. And I'll put a link in the Word document that I give you all so you can take a look at this. But given the upload of a document, when the document is processed, then the system will extract entities from the entity list automatically. That's the first thing. Then you can kind of drill down into what are those different, given the abstract section of a public health research paper. When the study approach, which that's one of the entities from above, is extracted, then the method will be shown as either qualitative, quantitative, or clinical trial mixed and or literature review method. So there's different type of study methods, study approach methods that this particular customer is interested in. When they read a PDF and they want the machine learning to extract, they want to know which method did that particular researcher use. Because at the end of the day, they want to kind of have that as a part of their insights when they're doing their presentation. But it's not going to show up as study approach, but the study approach, now you have to drill in, how is that shown and what are the different types? These were the different types, okay? So you have to be very specific when you're asking some of these. And then for some of the other entities, it's the same. So you just split them out, okay? Given the gender, that was one of them. So given the abstract summary section of the research paper, when gender is extracted, then the gender will be shown as what? Male, female, boy, girl, non-binary, transgender, males and females, or boys and girls. And even here, it mattered that maybe it's capitalized and lowercase. It was very specific. So what I would say is never assume that you know what the customer needs. You really have to put them in a position and make them feel as though they are the subject matter expert, because they are in their realm. They have to give you enough detail to be able to do this part, which is build the enablers. This is technically you're telling the how it's going to get done. Because you have enough information here, you can say, oh, well, there's a service on AWS called Textract that can extract information as raw text, key value pairs. Then you can use comprehend to comprehend it on AWS. So there are just some different things that you can do. And you'll be able to then list this out as enablers and come up with an architecture that makes sense, a technical architecture. Okay. Are there any questions on that? And Isabel, a time check would be really great, because I feel like we really didn't get to do the break.
Yeah, we have 3 minutes left.
That's no bueno. So I'm really glad that we came back to the main room. But I hope that that gives you, and I'll give you this as an example on that Word document. And Isabel, I'm not sure how we would get it to the attendees. I'm not sure if I would give that to Dr. Billionaire and then she would contact.
Yeah, I think Dr. Billionaire could get it to them by email.
Okay, are there any questions about this? And ladies and gentlemen, whoever's here, I would just say, being able to command this part of the interview, that no matter what they ask you, that you ask questions, not just about the organization and the culture, but also then about the solution that they're asking you to build. Maybe it's a test that they give you with some, limited instructions. Or maybe they just will give you a scenario. You don't really have to put hands to keyboard in the interview. Usually at an entry level, they kind of want you to just explain it. Don't leave out the value in knowing what the customer wanted first before you even put hands to keyboard and even explain that. I tell you right now, a lot of people go straight for the technology, get straight into the build, what they would actually use. I would showcase this just even a little bit to add some additional points to stand out before you start getting into some maybe code that you build or something like that. I would definitely add that as an extra layer. Okay? Because more often than not, myself and my colleagues, that's what they're looking for. They're looking for technical people that can be a dual threat there, because it's no longer just it comes in and then you dump, some features on the technical teams to build. You're very much a lot of times a part of the sales cycle and the sales process, and that means interacting with the customer to derive this information. So with the few minutes that we have, I'm so sorry we didn't get to do the hands-on exercise. I got a little bit botched and with the technical difficulties, but do you all have any additional questions, and do you think that this was helpful? That would be great. And did we have any questions, Isabel? I think I tried to answer the ones that I saw were in the chat before we started the session. Are there additional questions that were on the app that we're using as well that need to be answered?
I don't see any right now. But it was very helpful. Thank you so much.
I'm glad. Anyone else? I guess we have 1 minute.
Thank you.
And it looks like Isabel wants to know if we can give a rating to this conference. Oh, before leaving. Brenda, accessing the document. I spoke with Isabel here. I will give the document to Dr. Billionaire, and I will actually add a couple of links to it. And I'm not sure, I'm assuming she'll have the emails of everyone that's in this group to email it to you. But that's an assumption.
Yeah, I think as long as they signed up for the conference, they should have their email.
Got it.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Thank you all for being here. Thank you for allowing me to talk with you. This has been fantastic, and I really hope that you found any of this empowering. Please feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn. It's less crowded than my email box, and I'll definitely give you, a reach back. Okay. And it's 2:30, so I think that means my time is up here. Thank you, everybody, and I'm glad I'm seeing that people said that they felt like it was very helpful. Yes. Thank you. Awesome. Well, Isabel, my good friend Kayla, thank you so much for helping me with this session, and I look forward to working with you guys on future sessions.
Oh, thank you so much. I will definitely apply these new skills to future interviews.
Awesome. All right. To everyone's success. I hand it back to you, my friends.
Thank you.